The Shiwaliks, better known as the Lower Himalayas, are a range of the Outer Himalayas at elevations of between 1,500 and 2,000 meters. They are chiefly composed of sandstone and conglomerate rock formations. Most of the birding sites in the Kumaon district of Uttarakhand are located in this range. In November 2022, I travelled with my friend Nick Manville to Uttarakhand. After we had visited Chopta in Garhwal division, we drove for 8 hours to the Lower Himalayas in Kumaon division to a little village called Manila, which is slowly becoming a new destination for birders. Here we met our guide for the next 2 days, Vivek Rawat, who helped us locate our 3 target species: mountain scops owl, cheer pheasant, and cockless pheasant. Situated at an altitude of about 2,000 meters, on top of a ridge with great views of the high Himalayas, surrounded by old forests of planted pines with a sparse mix of natural oak trees, Manila is a small village with a few temples and a few guest houses that before the arrival of birders were catering mainly to pilgrims. Near the junction with the road to Saraiket, there are a few shops where it is possible to buy tea and snacks. There is not even a roadside restaurant. The natural oak trees are small and towered over by the planted pine trees. This is the largest forest in the area, which is mostly dominated by terraces where rice, vegetables and other crops are cultivated. The very steep hills, covered with long grass which grows under the pine trees, is the habitat of the cheer pheasant. Endemic to the Western Himalaya, this pheasant has vanished from most of its known sites. It completely disappeared from all its known locations around Nainital due to habitat loss, as most of the hill villages around have turned into towns. Here in Manila, it still survives in good numbers, and many birders come here specially for this bird. Later, we drove down a steep hill through pine forests to look for our second target bird, the cockless pheasant, which is commoner and easier to find than the cheer pheasant. It wasn't long before a female came out from the forest and started to call. Later, we found a male that stood on a big rock and called. With a distribution range from Afghanistan to China, it's considered to be a common species, although I have only seen it once outside of Uttarakhand. They are distantly related to common pheasants, but are more closely allied to grouse and turkeys. They're one of the few pheasants that regularly fly uphill and are capable of sustained flights of many kilometres. While searching for cockless pheasants, we saw a few upland pipits. Not many people pay attention to this bird, but it is only locally common, and I had only seen them once before. Later we went to an area along the road with mixed forest to look for other birds. Manila has similar species to other places in Uttarakhand, and the only bird we saw there that we hadn't seen anywhere else was spot-winged grosbeak. Mountain scops owl can be heard at night in most places in the Himalayas, yet it is one of the most difficult birds to see. I've failed to find this bird in many places and have spent hours searching for it at night. In Manila, it's heard everywhere and was easily located by our guide Vivek, in a few different places at night. It takes 1.5 hours to drive the 40 kilometers from Manila to Marchula, a small town on the edge of the Corbett Tiger Reserve. The road winds through picturesque villages and descends sharply until it reaches the Ramganga River at an elevation of about 500 meters. Corbett National Park is one of the best destinations for birds and wildlife in North India. Unfortunately, it's difficult to enter the park proper, and for those who do succeed, it is very strict. Most birders prefer to visit places outside the park in the buffer zone. We chose Vangat Lodge, which is located on the Ramganga River, about 5 kilometers downstream from Marchula. This lodge is one of the only true wildlife lodges in India. It is situated on the banks of the Ramganga River, in a forest, and it is built so as to be part of the forest, like some bush camps in Africa. It offers a rare opportunity to walk in a wilderness area where tigers and elephants roam. The lodge has 9 rooms, a dining room, staff quarters, and a watchtower with a view over a waterhole where birds and animals come to drink. Part of the experience of Vangat is getting there. This involves walking, rough jeep driving, and a river crossing on a pontoon. We arrived in Vangat just in time for lunch, and we were happy to eat together with a large variety of forest birds that come to eat and drink on and around a statue of a lying Buddha just next to the dining hall. The staff at Vangat provide seeds and fruits to the birds simultaneously with breakfast and lunch. Many birds are attracted to this event, and it is a great opportunity for photographers to obtain good shots. Crested kingfisher flown off. We timed our visit to coincide with a small British birding group led by James Champion, and which included Carol Inskip, who is the co-author of the most popular field guide to the birds of India. The lodge has a section which is dedicated to her and her husband Tim, and which serves as an auditorium. James Champion is the grandson of F.W. Champion, who pioneered nature conservation in India, and who was the first person to photograph tigers in the wild.
Yeah, it was below the bulbils and then it moved to the left.
He was also the person who convinced Jim Corbett to give up the gun for the camera. James is the narrator of my films, and I was happy to meet him after a long time. Walking down the Ramganga River near the lodge produces most of the common birds that are associated with fast-flowing rivers. In addition, there are very good chances for large raptors like Pallas's fish eagle and lesser fish eagle. Himalayan goral, a type of wild goat, is very likely to be seen on the cliffs on the other side of the river. We saw them every day. We were lucky to observe this family of smooth-coated otters swimming down the stream, catching fish and playing with each other. En route to Sattal, our last destination of this trip, we drove through the buffer zone of the national park, past Mohan, where we stopped at a site for collared falconet, which gave us an excellent view. This tiny raptor usually sits on a tree branch above a stream and catches insects in the air. There are many birds in this area, and it is worth spending some time here. Later, we stopped on the Kosi River near the Girija Devi temple to look for ibis bill. A few of these birds winter here. They are very well adapted to this environment, and we had to spend some time before we were able to locate them. Later, we continued to Choti Haldwani for a quick visit to the house where Jim Corbett lived, and which is now the Corbett Museum. On the way, we stopped by the side of the road to watch a group of 7 immature Himalayan griffon vultures and a single steppe eagle that were perched on trees next to a nullah. There was probably a carcass somewhere nearby, but we could not see it. Sattal is a hill station in the Kumaon Hills, about an hour's drive from Nainital. Being only 300 kilometres from Delhi and having plenty of hotels and restaurants with an impressive bird list and its famous bird hides, Sattal has become the capital of birders in North India. Sattal, which literally means 7 lakes, is a cluster of 7 mysteriously interconnected freshwater lakes set among dense forests of oak and pine trees, with some sections of natural mixed forest at an altitude of about 1,370 metres. Over the years, birdwatching has become very commercial here, with many tour operators and hotels that cater specifically to birders. It was Hari Lama who discovered Sattal as a bird paradise while he was working with Asian Adventure in the winter of 2002. Now he works independently and organises bird tours all over Uttarakhand and India. It was he who came up with the idea of bird hides in Sattal, first at Birder's Den about 10 years ago, and later Ashram Hide around 8 years ago. The hides are the main attraction for birders and photographers in Sattal, and most resorts that cater for birders have one. Ashram Hide is open to everybody for a fee. It is located on the edge of the forest and is the hide with the most chances for different birds. The original hide was on the right side of the road, just behind the building of the Methodist Christian ashram. I've been told that this hide was destroyed by monkeys, and it was shifted to the left side of the road. The hide is open from early morning. The caretaker puts seeds, fruits and fresh water on the ground or on other designated places. He also smashes up fruits and puts them in little holes in a wood trunk, which attracts mostly woodpeckers, which feed not only on the fruit but also on insects that are attracted to the mashed up fruits. Over time, birds get used to this system, start to trust, and come to feed without fear. The most important birds in Sattal are rufous-chinned laughing thrush and rufous-throated partridge. Both can be seen from the hides, although the latter has become more difficult in recent years. These birds are hard to see anywhere else, and birders, domestic and international, who work on their life lists, come here specifically for them. Other than the hides, there are 2 main sites for birding. The studio is situated at the end of a patch of forest between Sattal and Pumatal, two of the 7 lakes that form Sattal. We were lucky to meet Rahul and Khushbu Sharma, two of the best bird photographers in India, who showed us the exact location. After parking the car near a dike that borders the lake, we walked through a forest patch, crossed a small nullah that leads water from Sattal to Pumatal, and sat in an open area where there is a little stream that is probably formed from a spring. Very soon birds came to drink and wash, ignoring the presence of people and the clicks of their cameras. I was advised to come again in March or April, as there is more activity in spring. Later we went for a walk down towards Pumatal. The forest here is mixed natural forest, and it looked very promising. The oak trees had their acorns open, but all we saw was plum-headed parakeets and a single barking deer. Chaffee Nullah is a site east of Bimtal, where a road goes along the Gorla River, as far as a bridge that crosses it. The road condition was very bad and created clouds of dust. Fortunately, we saw signs that the road is under repair. The dust settles on the trees and rocks in the Nullah and makes it a very unpleasant experience to bird in a place that otherwise is very beautiful. We started birding on a hanging footbridge that crosses the Nullah, and from where there is a good view over the river. The dust and the noise of the cars do not seem to disturb the birds, which were plentiful, and like in other places in Sattal, were very cooperative. We saw 3 different kinds of forktails in the same area, foraging for food and even submerging themselves in the water. This was the only place on this tour where we saw slaty-backed forktail. Uttarakhand is the westernmost part of its distribution. Chaffee Nullah is a site for tawny fish owl. After we had missed it in Chopta and at Vangat Lodge, we had high expectations. We missed it on our first attempt and were very happy to locate it the next day sitting on a pine tree. There is an open debate between ornithologists about feeding birds. In India, the practice is relatively limited, but in many countries, especially in South America and Southeast Asia, areas where hunting is a big problem, it is very popular. My friend Noam Shani, whose business is to guide governments in establishing sustainable bird tourism in their countries, and who has over 30 years of experience, says that studies do not prove that feeding affects the natural behaviour of birds. And if it does, it only affects birds within a relatively small radius from the feeder, as most bird species, especially resident forest birds, are territorial. The economic effect that bird tourism brings to communities, which are usually remote and poor, is massive. And with time, it can turn full communities from poachers to conservationists. In some cases, as is the case with some kinds of pitters in Southeast Asia, the only known population in the world is perhaps a small group of birds that are fed by a farmer who will do everything he can to protect the birds that bring him an income. The bird that lays the golden egg.